Hello and welcome to Real Chat with Kat, the podcast dedicated to igniting your entrepreneurial spirit and empowering you to conquer new horizons. In this podcast, we chat with inspiring entrepreneurs on their journey to success through some amazingly insightful and expansive conversations. These episodes thrive on thought-provoking chats where our guests fearlessly explore their path to success, sharing their experiences, failures, and triumphs. No topic is off limits as we deep dive into the talked about and not so talked about pieces it takes to build a business, overcome limiting beliefs, deal with personal struggles, and everything in between that shapes our lives and our businesses. I'm your host, Kat Polsonelli, creator and founder at The Lotus Effect, where we believe that success is not just about strategies and tactics, it's about cultivating a powerful mindset and creating customized business operations that align with you and your true purpose. Whether it's mastering time management, improving productivity, enhancing leadership skills, or simply fostering a growth-oriented mindset, we'll provide you with the tools and strategies to flourish in both your business and personal life. I'm so excited to have you join us today in this episode, so get ready to feel empowered and inspired as we learn together and from one another on how to rise above challenges, break through limitations, and unlock our full potential. Let's dive in. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining me today on this episode of Real Chat with Kat. I am so excited to have you guys here with me today. I have a fantastic guest. I am so excited to jump into this conversation. So, Stina Borth, thank you so much for being a part of the podcast today.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here, and I'm excited to get into some combo and stories and chit chat.
It's going to be so much fun. Oh my gosh. We had such an amazing pre-conversation, and then we ended up chatting before we even got started. So, Stina, I will let you take it away, please, for our audience. Let everybody know, who you are, what it is that you do, and what got you into your space.
So I'm Stina Borth, and these are all my little labels, and I love my identities that I bring them together. So I'm neurodivergent, queer, entrepreneurial. I'm a woman. And let's see, what else do I want to put on there? I guess I'm a warrior for change and growth, and I'm a keymaker. So Keymaker Services is the name of my company, and it actually came from this amazing poem that was hanging up on my wall when I was in the transitional period, and I was thinking, oh, what do I call this thing that I'm going to be doing, that I want to create? And so I'm definitely, there's another one. I'm a manifester. And I was just having this conversation in the last couple of weeks with friends and colleagues and talking about, like, what does it mean to be a manifestor? Because manifesting isn't like, it's just a power and you just show up and it just happens.
Yeah.
It's a choice of saying, I'm going to manifest this, and then these are the steps that I'm going to take. And somebody actually was saying to me in the last 24 hours, like, Stina, I see you as a manifestor. And then I love how your manifesting style is, here's the plan. We're going to plan these next steps. And that is completely in line with my neurodivergent self, is I need to know, all right, here's the goal. Blinders on. This is what we're going to do. Step 1, step 2, step 3. And that allows me to really hone in and self-manage the neurodiversity that I experience. And so I mean, if it's cool, I actually had pulled up the Keymaker poem I wanted to share.
Oh, yes, please.
And it's short. So it's called Keymakers. It says, some people see a closed door and turn away. Others see a closed door, try the knob, and if it doesn't open, they turn away. Still others see a closed door, try the knob. If it doesn't open, they find a key. If the key doesn't fit, they turn away. A rare few see a closed door, try the knob. If it doesn't open, they find a key. If the key doesn't fit, they make one. And I was like, yes, that is exactly my mantra, what I want to be living by, what I want to be doing in my work, in my life. And it fuels everything. Another one of my favorite words is like, yet, or we're not there yet. And so that impacted a huge kind of pivot in my life. And so taking that on and saying, like, I'm a key maker, we are key makers, here's the key maker method, that's been something that's steered me. And actually, like, I don't know if you can see it. So this necklace,
Oh, I can't see the key.
little key.
How
And there's a story
cute.
behind that too. I got that from my mother on my birthday a couple years ago. Maybe it was a year and a half ago. It was the first birthday after my father had passed. And my father was, I have always said, like, my father was like the first key maker, because he was very much problem solving. He was the one that, if you ever seen those videos like online, go, oh yeah, it's such a dad. He's got this huge box of wood, or random things that he saved before that one day that it's like
Yep.
20 years later. Now that was my, but I'd have a problem. I'd be, oh, what am I going to do? He's like, it's okay. Well, we'll figure it out. And he was a total key maker. Like, let's find that key to open that door. So when she gave this to me after I'd started my company, after my father had passed, and then said, this, your father gave to me when we were dating. And it just brought it full circle for me.
Aww.
Like, yeah, Dad, you were like the first key maker. You installed that in me. And now it's coming out, and it's such a center piece of everything, of who I am and what I do.
That is so cool.
Isn't it?
I love that.
The tears flowing. And so now I wear it for anything that I feel is important. So I don't wear it every day. You know, it has to be maintained. It's special.
Yeah.
And I pull it out, and it's just one of those things that like glimmer. And I go, okay, it's going to be a great day. You're with me.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Don't cry. Continue the conversation. We're going to focus. I got this. Okay. So I know that you have all these other pieces behind you, and I know that we kind of talked about the neurodiversity as well. And I feel like this is a term that is like really starting to catch fire. So
Yeah.
I would love to know, one, what is kind of your definition of it? And then two, how does that play into your services and what you do as well?
Absolutely. And, I love having this question. I love defining it as in how I'm functioning within it, because I think there's some variations out there, and people are using it in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
So there's neurodiversity, there's neurodivergent, there's neurotypical, and then there's neuroinclusion. And so neuro.
Yes, I've heard each one of those. I do not know the differences between any of it.
So neurodiversity is like that overarching umbrella. It's the concept that there's a range of differences in our brain function, and there's different behavioral traits and skills regarding, like, in comparison to a normal variation, which I also have a very strong opinion about normal. I think it's a setting on the dryer, and we should never use that term. But so neurodiversity is saying, like, there is diversity in our nervous system and how it takes in information, how we process stimulus, whether that's verbal information, written information, the wind that blows, when we're walking around, the sounds that we hear, that's our nervous system. Mm-hmm. So think of everything that your nervous system is processing. There's diversity in that. And it's acknowledging that each one of us have a unique design. And so neurodivergent. So if we take neurodiversity and we say that there's a huge neurodiversity spectrum, here's the umbrella. We have on one side neurodivergent. So neurodivergent saying is a person who has a brain that works differently than maybe the majority.
Okay.
I like that better than saying or normal, like different than the majority. So a lot of times at that end of the spectrum, we put people that have been diagnosed, which I think also we have to be careful with. Mm-hmm. Because there's a lot of folks that are neurodivergent that are not aware, and they're still experiencing that same type of experience as someone that might have the label of like ADHD, autism, OCD, learning disabilities, dyslexia, dysgraphia. I mean, the list is quite long. Mm-hmm. That would be in neurodivergent. That's where I identify, because and that's another, we'll get into another of like, and I wasn't always aware. I wasn't aware until I was an adult and already, in my career, which mm-hmm. is also hilarious because my career was all focused on disabilities, learning disabilities, emotional behavioral disabilities. So I'm studying all funny, and I'm not even aware of myself. I know it up here, but I'm not noticing that until I had this aha moment of discovery through observation and reflection and through experts, this is my slot. This is my identity here. And then we have on the other end of the spectrum of neurodiversity, neurodivergent, neurotypical. So neurotypical is, we're saying they're not neurodivergent, and that, and maybe this person just isn't recognizing that they're somewhere else on the spectrum. They're saying, I'm just not neurodivergent. I feel like my experience is a neurotypical. I don't have a diagnosis, which for me is a struggle in the space that I work, because I feel like we all have such a unique makeup, no matter who we are.
Yeah.
I think a lot of folks that even say, they would look at them and go, they're so similar. They're almost the same person. Even twins they're different. There's differences, right? And they have a lot of the genetics are
yeah.
Similar. So we have neurotypical, we have neurodivergent, we have neurodiversity. That is the overarching. Neuroinclusion means that we're choosing to recognize that diversity in the ways that people's brains work, process information, and how they communicate. But we're choosing to leverage that to cultivate an inclusive environment that embraces everybody and supports everybody.
Okay.
And so for me, neuroinclusion is so important because everybody has a nervous system. And it's also so linked into all diversity. And I feel like the practices of neuro-inclusive thought are also layered into even if we're bringing in like a racial equity consultant or a gender pay gap, keynote speaker or something in a company, we're all working in that diversity. We're all working in that mindset of inclusion, of diversity. And so neuroinclusion has that same type of mindset.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes total sense.
And I love that it's something that's something that can unite us.
Mm-hmm.
Too.
Yeah. And I've heard that, and tell me if this is wrong, but from my understanding and, the little bit of kind of reading and research that I've kind of done into it, was, from my understanding, like ADHD and a lot of the other things that, have labeled people as like an issue or a problem was actually the normal for us way back. We just have kind of tried to breed it out of our society as a way to get people to do the same thing, the same way, in the same motion. I'm sorry, you guys, but it's easier to control. I won't get into it, but that, I feel like that's kind of been done. So then when you have people that still have this, in my opinion, it's kind of an amazing ability to be able to hyper focus and do some of the things that they can. It's very frustrating for me as well, because my oldest one has ADHD, and I never wanted to label him as there was something wrong with him. I just wanted to figure out, like, okay, cool, your puzzle works differently. How can we move things around so that you are able to learn in a way that works best for you, versus trying to put you in a box that everybody says that you should fit into? And that's kind of, the back end of my business as well, right? Like everything that I talk about with people and the ways that they can run their companies, like, stop trying to put yourself in somebody else's box and accept your uniqueness. And then how can we build from there? And I think that we've lost that in our society.
Yep. And what we're doing when we push back on that is that we're deciding to unlock those hidden skills, and that hyper focus, the ability to pivot. I mean, these are all essential so going back, survival, if we think, years ago, but it's survival, like as business folks, we need that. We need people that are going to say, all right, this is the box, or these are the lines that we have been functioning in. This is the typical, this is the given. We need somebody that's going to go, but what about over there? What if we step out of that? And then that can be really where the problem is solved, or where the innovation happens. So the best thing, and the big dogs, like the big business owners, I just did a training with Wells Fargo earlier too, and I was like, this is amazing. They were bringing consultants like from all over the world, and I'm going, oh, we need more and more of this. But we have large companies. We have SAP. We have Wells Fargo. We have the Hewitt Hewlett Packard Enterprise, they have all shown us with their own data, they've invested their own money of doing neuro awareness, neuro inclusive practices, and they have seen that the results are amazing. There's like thousands, millions of dollars. So it's not just, yes, we're including because it's good for humankind. We're thinking about the human side of it. It's also good for business.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so when we're asking ourselves as business owners or entrepreneurs, which I want to get into that too, of neural entrepreneurship is
yes,
so amazing. But we are asking, make a business decision that's also great for growth and innovation and addresses that we're humans and that we're all working as humans together in community.
Mm-hmm.
That neuro entrepreneurship is really cool because we find is that there's more for entrepreneurs. They have us. I mean, I'm an entrepreneur too, so we have more connections in specific parts of our brains that allow us to brainstorm and think of these ideas and then actually put them into action. And so when we have all those connectivity, we're able to pivot, we're able to be agile, and these are things that are essential for moving forward in the world as the world changes and happens, and the unpredictables happen, i.e. like pandemic.
Hello.
We all just went through this. You know who was really key to that? Neurodivergent folks are the folks that really, really helped us. And then when we have that along with neurotypical, what we find is that there's an increase for the whole community because now we're all interacting. We don't have the same thought. If we all sit in a meeting and we're all thinking the same thing and nothing changes and the problem stays the same, we don't like that, right? We need to have those differences for development and for survival.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like it too, and I've talked about this in my podcast before, is you get to put people essentially in the right seat on the bus so that they enjoy what they do because you're playing to their strengths. And I think that we just always aren't choosing to play to their strengths. It's easier for us as a society to label something, call it a problem or not normal. And then you have this group of people that feel like there's something wrong with them, when in reality, it is them that can make the change. Because like you said, they are thinking outside of the box. They are looking at things differently. I mean, if you think about it, if you think about Nikola Tesla, if you think about, Albert Einstein and things like, they didn't think inside the box. People thought they were crazy, but they brought some of the most inventive things to our world. And it's like, we need to continue to water and grow people that are like that, because that's how things change. That's how new inventions, things that are better for our society, that's how those things come about. Not by us clocking in and clocking out every day, doing the same thing day in and day out. And for those of you that like that, there is nothing wrong with that. I am not saying that. But for a lot of us, especially those that are entrepreneurs, we decided to be an entrepreneur because we get bored easily. Okay. I'm just saying. So
Well, and I think that brings me right to so related to the nervous system, it brings me right to stimulus and like within our nervous system. And I talk about this a lot with my clients and this is like, I continue to have these ahas with myself too. Like, oh, this makes sense. Is that when we acknowledge that we have a nervous system and that there's diversity within it, and with how like folks communicate and process and we get higher productivity, we get it because if we honor that the amount of the stimulus needs to be in that, I call the Goldilocks level. So like we need a certain level of stimulus to activate and engage in a topic or a thought. I think we could all agree with that. But then we also can't have too much that we end up shut down and freezing.
Yeah.
Right? So too much stimulus. And because then what happens is like it gets really hard to think. It's really hard to like actually communicate information. But if we are in that Goldilocks space of that like just right amount of stimulus for our nervous system, we end up being able to, through practicing like awareness and like environment management, we end up being able to be very successful of demasking, of dropping our guard, of sharing innovative ideas. And then that creates something beautiful and new, right? And then when people are in that space, we're like, oh, I can be successful in this. I'm managing my stimulus. I'm seen of my true self. Now we're getting into like Maslow's, right? Basic human needs, or where I'm accepted, I'm safe, I have, connection and belonging, I'm safe, I have esteem, I can reach self-actualization, or even like physiological, like now I can actually get food and water because I'm doing the work and my nervous system is balanced and I'm with folks that are accepting me and I don't have to hide it when I go into the workplace. Then you get commitment and loyalty and community.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that I feel like we have this battle right now where we're seeing one side or the other, because this is starting to come up so much more often, and people are talking about it and wanting to be a part of it. And then you kind of still have that old mentality, right? Because that's more controllable. But at the same time, like, we need to have both. And I think that, when you're talking about different stimuli and things like that as well, we need to learn what that does to us,
Right.
and be okay to let people know that, oh, I can't come to this party because every time I'm around a group of people, like, it's too much for me. And people being okay with that, right? Like, I was talking with someone not too long ago, and we got to talking about different things and how it works within the brain and how we function. And she was saying that, if I need to hyper focus, like, it has to be dead silent. And I'm like, really? That's super interesting. I said, because I'm the opposite. If it's super quiet for me, my brain focuses on everything that's around me. I can hear the dog downstairs. I can hear when my kids come in. I can hear if my husband's having a conversation. So what I have to do is I actually have to put headphones on, turn music on real low so that part of my brain has to focus to that music, and I can bang something out for 3 or 4 hours with no problem at all. But it's really interesting to see how different we are and how those things work for us. And I think that the more that we understand what those stimuli do to us, how they affect us, and then what kind of works for us so we can find our path, it also creates confidence, and you want to set up your boundaries a little bit more, because now you're like, oh, no, I know that this works. I know that this is good for me, and I don't want to allow this other space. And I think that's where a lot of people are falling in between, is people haven't really figured out or explored what may potentially work for them. And so they're kind of like, and they dip their toe in and they're back out, and then they dip their toe in and they're back out. And it's like, but if you fully step into learning and understanding you, like, you become a powerhouse in your own world. And then it makes everything else, in my opinion, it makes everything else so much easier. It's easier to say yes. It's easier to say no. It's easier to set boundaries. Your confidence starts to radiate. Your courage starts to come out a little bit more, because you start to understand who you are at your core. And then you don't have to look for outside people to label you or tell you what you need to do, because you've discovered it.
Right. And you're totally speaking about that self-awareness piece, which is the start of everything. And the people that are most successful in their relationships, in their work, in everything that they do, it starts with that awareness of self, awareness of those around us, and then the ability to communicate it out and having that language. I think what's really cool about what's happening now is that we're starting to have more language. So it was awesome that you asked, like, so how do you define this? Because now we have a common language that we can talk about it. And knowing and discovering, what I've discovered was through self-observation. It's through somebody asking me these questions. It's from exposure through education. But if it was never brought up, I don't know any different. And I continue on living a life that I'm like, this is just how it is. Now what I've discovered is I can get into my essence and my power through A, B, C, doing this, that, and for myself. So, like, I love how you're talking about how you need that music, and it allows you, it busies, what it's doing is busying that part of your brain so that the rest of it can go, and it's not like draining a chunk of your mental energy away from the task at hand. For me, I definitely either have to have no lyrics. If I'm doing music, it's something like white noise, something, because I'll end up just like going along with it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I totally.
But I also love, and I do this quite often when I'm going to any kind of event or I'm going to a gathering. or any space, even walking. I mean, I live in Miami Beach, so there's a lot of stimulus. I
Yeah.
love those little earbuds, like just like I use the loop ones or even just earplugs. You can still hear, but it brings it down the amount that's actually going in so that I can function through. Maybe I can go to this party and I can stay to the end. I can go to this networking event or I can go to this conference and I don't end up being so exhausted.
Yeah.
Because my system has been managing and trying to regulate that all of this auditory, because auditory for me is probably the biggest that takes energy out of me and my nervous system.
Okay.
It goes a little less. Do you feel when like with your setup, do you feel like you manage your visual as well? Because that's another
Yes.
when people like when remember when everything switched to now we're doing co-working and I'm going nightmare.
Yeah.
Nope.
Yeah.
I need my space.
Yeah. So mine is there's some audio, and I think that's more of like when I'm working, because like I can be in a crowd of people and I can have fun and I know how to like hone in into a conversation and block out other things when I'm
Yeah.
talking. But if I'm needing to hyper focus on work, it's a little bit different. But it's the same way with colors and things like that. So like funny
Mm.
enough, okay, my husband loves art, loves
Mm.
art. Okay. And I love it, but we don't always align on the same art. So like he loves things that are just like splashed and all over the place. And to me, I'm like, that is so much in so many places. I can't even deal with that. Right. So I like things that are more pattern based or have a
Mm.
reason to them or have, right. So it kind of slows it down. Same thing when I learned block scheduling. When I first learned about block scheduling, people are like, oh, you just block out your calendar, da 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 da. So I did like everyone showed me, which was everything in blue. Boy, everything
Mm.
melted together. And it wasn't until I figured out about color coding on my own. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to label personal things this. I'm going to label these things this. I'm going to label this meaning this. And it was like, oh my God, this is amazing. Like everything has a pattern, but that's how my brain functions. I function in patterns and lines and things that do that. So if you throw a bunch of squirrely things at me, it really takes me a minute. And sometimes that is actually more overwhelming than if you give me a pattern and say, can you break this out? I'm like, oh, yeah, no, I can pull that apart, pull this apart, and pull that apart. Where my husband is the opposite, which is interesting because in his job, he is not. So he's in project
Mm.
management in IT. So very broke down to the ninth degree, which I cannot do. I'm a little bit more simplistic. Like, hey, if it should all go here, can we just leave it here? I don't want to break it down in 7 other descriptions below, like
No.
just keep it here. Right. So it's interesting to see that in business, he knows how to be very, very organized and broke down. But when he's looking at art and doing other things, he's like wild. In my opinion, and it's fine, but that's how he functions. Same way with our house. My poor husband, when we first got together, he loves to rearrange furniture and stuff, and I do not mind moving things, but I have to be able to see where it's going to go before we move it. And he came in one day and we had bought this piece of furniture, and him and his son just started moving everything, and I walked into the chaos. I literally shut down. Like I had a
Mm.
breakdown. I
Yeah.
couldn't handle it. Things were all over the place. I was like, we need to clean. You can't move that without doing this. This can't go over here. I need to be able to see where it's going. Like I had a moment. He had to come in the bathroom. He's like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "No, I'm not." Like
Uh,
I'm not used to people touching things and just moving stuff without me understanding where it's going, how it's going to be laid out. I need to be able to visualize and, oh, okay, that makes sense. Yeah, cool. No, that's totally fine. But if you just go in and tear things apart and go, oh, don't worry, it'll look good when you're done, please blindfold me and keep me out of it.
right. Well, and I love that you like, so you went to the bathroom. Such a cool and amazing and I love that it was natural to you because that's a tool that works pretty much anywhere, is where you're limiting the stimulus. You're like, I'm overloaded.
Mm-hmm.
I need to allow my system to re-regulate. So I'm going to manage the stimulus that is receiving. The stimulus was in the main part of the house. So you went, where can I go that I can, it's just here. Okay. So grounded. And then like, that makes total sense to me. And another thing that I think what of your share there was patterns. Patterns are like one of the number one, recognizing pattern number one superpowers of neurodivergent folks. Did you know that? Like it's
I
one of
did
those,
not.
yeah, it's one of those things that we can find a pattern. So we're like the best if you're a pattern in walking into a room or a meeting, a pattern in
Hmm.
we will see that where a neurotypical may not. And because that's it's naturally wired into us. And then the other piece, which is really cool, is that we get so much pleasure and so much dopamine out of figuring out the pattern or finding the pattern,
We
because
really do.
it's a basic human pleasure. Like that's why we like listening to like mystery stories or what happened there, how
Oh
did
my
they solve
gosh.
that,
Yes.
because we get so much pleasure out of solving the puzzle as
Makes
humans,
total sense. That
right?
makes total sense because that's what I tell everybody. Like that is my favorite part of my job is solving people's puzzles. I love doing that.
Mm.
That's so funny. Look, everybody, I'm
Yeah.
learning something about myself today.
Yeah. And then I wonder, like, just like because we do also have a need, and I also often bring this up, and I do it for myself when I get off of this. I call it a download time, and basically it's like a meditation, but it's for my neurodivergent brain to just flow, because I've been managing it from this time to this time the whole day. So it's either got to happen in the morning if I feel like I got to release it, and then it's almost like I see the thoughts and the words and pictures come through. I'm like, all right, here, you're going in that filing cabinet. You're going over here. Yep, yep, yep. And I'm very visual. So I'm seeing this all in my mind, but we all need some sort of download time for that chaos that's happening up here to be
Hmm.
released. And then we can go into with our organization, because otherwise you're holding that back. And it's like pounding on the door, and eventually it's going to break through and overwhelm you if you don't allow that space of those thoughts that have been coming in the whole time, where you're like, nope, I need to focus on this task. You're not allowed here. You're not allowed here. You never do that throughout your day. Eventually it's gonna through. So that's what, so I'm thinking about, like, when you were talking about your husband having, like, this is his container for the chaos. And maybe that's how he's able to balance it out, of where he has none of that over here.
That makes sense. That's
It's
interesting because I do that throughout my day. Like my
Mhm.
lunches are programmed in to my calendar, and I at least have to have a 30-minute lunch. And I use that as a way to write things out, talk through other things, or go outside just to like decompress before
Mhm.
hopping into the next thing. And I'm very aware on my schedule now that I can have so many conversations, but my day needs to be kind of broken up. So in the morning, I may focus more on client work and things like that. And then the afternoon, I might have a couple of conversations.
Mhm.
But doing an entire day like I did for a while, or where I was pinging all over the place, like, oh, conversation here, work, conversation here, work, that threw me off
Yeah.
big time. And so again, it's finding that pattern. I had to find kind of the pattern of how I work so that I could break up my day, and to do the same thing in the afternoons. I get done with calls and then I focus to more simplistic tasks. So like going through my emails, writing people back, like doing stuff like that, and then making my task list of anything else that needs to be completed that I can look at for the next day. Like that's how, so I do have kind of like peak moments, calm down, peak moment, calm down. Like I do have to have that, because if not, I would have a really hard time going to sleep.
Right. Absolutely. And you're also tapping in on, and I have, it's the work burst, like recognizing when are my highs, when are my high
Mm-hmm.
productivity, high, I can engage in a lot. And then also making sure that you get that after a period, whenever your burst is, you have the recovery time. I think a lot of us that are neurodivergent have that. And if we can recognize it through self-observation and assessment, that's something that I do with teams too. I did it with myself. I did it with my own team. I've done it with one-on-one clients. And then I was like, okay, this is, if we can see where everybody's burst is, and then we compare them and we see where they're overlapping, or when people are specifically on and when they need recovery, and we honor that, we can be more productive. I'm so productive by honoring my pattern. My weekly pattern is
Mm-hmm.
I'm on fire Tuesday, Wednesday, and I start coming down on Thursday and Friday. It's got to be all creative, because anything else, I'm just not in that space anymore. So I can do meetings and engagement, because meetings are more back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's something I've got to sit down and I've really got to hone in my focus, I'm going to do it on a Tuesday or Wednesday. And we all have that as well, not only from the weeks and from our days, our hours, we have it in the months, in the years. And the more we know about that within ourselves, the more that we can self-manage and advocate within wherever our workspace is or our relationships. You know, how many times have we had a conversation with a loved one where they're like, cool, I just got home from work and now I want to have this conversation of planning out the weekend, and you're going,
Yeah.
know,
Time out.
like, can't do it. And then it's also the transition of going within tasks, right? So if
Yeah.
you're saying, I can't go do this type of task and then go flip right into that, we have to honor that transition period too. So like I'll always within meetings I'll honor at least 30 minutes to an hour, because there needs to be a transition of we just took in a bunch of information. Now I need to digest it.
Yep.
And then get ready for the next.
Yep.
Have you done any practice like with figuring out your time ratio? So like when you think this type of task, you know, that doing my emails takes me this much amount of time, and then figuring out if that's an actual accurate prediction?
I think I have a little bit, but not much. Like I typically have emails scheduled out for about an hour, and then just depending on the load of the emails, it may take close to that or a little bit less. If I'm doing OBM work, I'm usually pretty spot on. If I'm like, I think it's going to take me probably 3 hours, it generally takes me about 3 hours. I am pretty good about breaking that down and understanding how much time it'll take me to learn something. I've also learned I have to be careful for anybody else that's like this. I learn very quick, and I also power through things. So when I do that for a little while in my business, it was actually causing me to lose money because I was charging what typically would be charged. And then what I realized by talking to several people, like, although that takes me like 5 or 6 hours, I'm like, oh, I banged that out in like 3. Really? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, oh, crap. I'm leaving money on the table because I can get things done quicker. Like I need to breathe. I need to pay attention to what I'm doing and what I'm charging, because while I'm doing the same task someone else can do, I can get it done a lot quicker, especially when I'm hyper focused. Like I know I can move through stuff. And so I really had to learn, actually learn this kind of more last year, like, oh, wow. Oh, I need to be aware of that, because I thought that just took everybody about that amount of time. They're like, no, it takes me a lot longer. I'm like, oh.
Yeah. So like when you're in your superpower, you're in your essence and you're highly productive. Yeah. And I think that is a tip to like everybody too, that's in business, has a business or service that you're charging by the hour, to reevaluate and see, like maybe do it more of like a project based, because also, I think within that by the hour, so let's say you plug it out in 3 hours, you probably need that equal amount or more of recovery after that, because you've just thrown it all in. So that is part of the process. That's part of what your client is purchasing as well, is that you are playing it through. And so, I mean, I think that that's something that we need to honor as well, because it's not like you can go through that 3 hours and then you're going to go right into the next one, right?
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense to me. That worked first. So the ratio thing I was thinking about, because I didn't know this about myself, although I'm sure other people observe this. Stina was always late. Why is Stina always late? I don't know, because I think it's going to be 5 minutes, but my 5 minutes was like 8 minutes. So
my son is like that. My son is like that. Or he'll tell a story and be like, it took like 30 minutes. I'm like, it was 15. Dude, it wasn't that long. He was like, well, it felt like 30. I'm like, okay, but it wasn't. And I've always, like, that's never made any sense to me till you and I talked about it the last time. And I was like, oh, okay.
Yep. So if you start picking out those main tasks or the types of things, and you start recording, doing self-observations, or, I mean, I also have looped in people on the outside. So what do you see and observe of me? When I say this, is it really this? But also starting to time it, and then you calculate it. So now what I do is I say, if I think it's going to take 30 minutes, I multiply it by 1.75. And then I say, that's the time I block off on my calendar. Because as much as I want to say that my inner clock can be adjusted, it's part of my wiring, and it's not going to be my hill to die on. I'm just going to manage it differently.
That is so cool though. See, but I love this though. I love the tips of helping people understand so that you can function your way, which then helps you be able to function on a regular basis without you feeling like there's something wrong with you, because there's never anything wrong with you. You just have something really cool and unique, and you just need to figure that out. Okay, Stina, we're going to have you back on here for round 2 so that we can dive in this even more, because I think this is such a cool topic. And, you know, I haven't learned about it until, you know, my oldest one had some things, and then I started noticing some stuff. I've never been officially diagnosed, but I have had several people be like, are you neurodivergent? I'm like, I don't know. It's just been normal for me. It's just been who I am. Like nobody's ever labeled, corrected, or anything. It was me. So we're going to have to bring you back for round 2.
Totally. I mean, that's not surprising. I mean, I wasn't diagnosed until I was 26. And I was like working in the field and studying in the field. So, and the other thing is I just heard this the other day is that, so the stats say 1 in 5 people are neurodivergent. Then those are people that are already identified where they've been diagnosed or they're disclosed. Most of us, a lot of us are not there yet or haven't been there yet. Somebody said by the year 2050, it's going to be like 50% because we're becoming more aware.
Oh, wow. Okay. I mean, that makes sense.
Just remember, it's like, it doesn't, neurodiversity and having these same experiences doesn't mean that you're like totally into the criteria, because the criteria for being diagnosed, it changes too. So those definitions, those are updated based on all the research and the science and the stuff that we know in that moment.
Yeah.
So as the years go by, as we know more about our brains and we know about the human experience, it's natural that we're going to have more language, more labels, more boxes to
more labels, more boxes. Yay.
But it's language to be able to you know, honor and recognize and name, you know, who we are and communicate that out to others. That's the role that I think is valuable.
Yeah. Well, Stina, I can't thank you enough for all of this amazing information and bringing all of this to the surface. I definitely think that this is starting to become more of a normal topic of conversation. And I think more people are benefiting from it than ever. So, you know, as we come to a close with the conversation, do you happen to have a quote or a piece of advice you'd like to leave the audience with?
Absolutely. So I think my I would invite others, I'd say, choose to be a key maker. So to make those keys to open your doors, whatever it is that's blocking you, just remember that there is some solution out there. You're just not seeing it yet. To use experts and to recognize also that there's a huge population of us out there. And just reaching out. You could reach out to me. We can chat. I'm on all of the socials. You just gotta look up Keymaker and look up Stina Borth. But I think it's just really honoring and recognizing that there's nothing, I love how you're saying, there's nothing wrong with you. It's about finding that key, creating it, opening that door, and then moving forward with the information you have in that moment. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Well, Stina, tell everybody then, you know, how can they connect with you? How can they follow you? How can they be in your world?
So LinkedIn, you just look up Stina Borth. My company is Keymaker Services, so it's keymakerservices.com. You can, on Instagram, it's Keymaker Services. Everything's Keymaker Services. On Facebook, it's Keymaker Services. There's even a YouTube if you want to watch me chat more, Keymaker Services. So, and then my direct line, I mean, I think for your folks, that's totally fine for me to share. It's 305-912-5393. Just text and say, hey, I want to hang out and chat.
I love that, Stina. Thank you so much. And to everybody else that's out there, don't forget, you know, to reach out to her, to be in her world, to learn all these amazing things. And of course, we'll have all this information in the show notes for you as well. So we'll make it super simple for you to be able to find and follow her. And Stina, again, thank you so much for all of the information today.
Thank you, Kat. Loved it.
You're so welcome. I hope you guys got your mind blown. I was so excited for this conversation to happen. We're definitely going to have her back so we can dive into this even more. So I hope that you got some amazing takeaways. If not, re-listen to it, take some notes. And don't forget, until next time, do one thing positive for someone each and every day and see the difference that it makes in your life. So until next time, have a fantastic day. Hello again, and thank you so much for being a part of the podcast today. If you enjoyed this episode and it brought tons of value, we ask that you please share, like, and subscribe. Your support means the world to us and helps us to reach even more inspiring entrepreneurs who can benefit from these powerful conversations. If you haven't already, be sure to leave a review on your favorite podcast platform, as this feedback is an amazing gift that fuels our growth and helps us to continually improve this podcast. Looking for an extra dose of inspiration and empowerment? Then be sure to connect with me on social media. You can find me at The Lotus Effect, where I share valuable resources and tips while sharing my own journey of being an entrepreneur. And if you're interested in learning more about my coaching programs and services, be sure to check out my website at the-lotus-effect.com. Once again, thank you so much for being a part of Real Chat with Kat. Your presence and support makes all the difference. Remember, whether you find yourself in the depths of the mud or on the path of growth, we all have a unique journey. And just like the lotus, some of us start in the dirtiest of mud, yet as we rise and grow, we blossom into something beautiful, unique, and truly one of a kind. To all of my visionaries out there, keep rising and growing as you create your own Lotus Effect.